Hey guys, BwPA bringing you another Unholy Death Knight Dragonflight video. Today we are taking a look at Mythic Plus after the recent 10.0.7 changes. I felt like this is a good opportunity to make a video, both because we were recently buffed, but also because the 10.0.7 changes quite significantly change how we approach the Mythic Plus environment. Also, everything I say here is going to be useful into 10.1 because we're not getting any significant changes that will impact how we actually play in Mythic Plus. We will take a look at talents, some gear, talk a lot about rotation, a little bit about stats, that kind of thing. So everything you need to know to just play optimally in a Mythic Plus environment and just deal the maximum amount of damage. This run here, I'm going to finish at 180k overall, which I think is a good number to reach, right? I do get power infusion, that kind of thing, but it just kind of shows you that Unholy is an absolute monster in Mythic Plus in the right scenarios. Obviously, we're looking at the Academy. This is where you're going to see the biggest DPS by far, but we will do well in pretty much all other dungeons, to be honest. All right, let's just get straight into it by talking about talent. So what do we currently run in Mythic Plus? So this up here is the standard kind of build. We have a couple options here. So in the general tree, you see I actually go into Will of Necropolis. This is something I've started doing recently. So I sacrifice 1 point in Unholy Bond to be able to pick up Will of Necropolis, as well as the Insidious Chill, I think it's called. It makes you significantly more tanky, and I think it is worthwhile to sacrifice that little DPS you do sacrifice by picking up Will of Necropolis to get that extra survivability. I feel like with these talents, if you die, you really have to mess up. Like, you will almost never die due to lack of healing or something like that. So definitely recommend that. In the general tree, you can see we are picking up Defile. This is kind of new tech in 10.0.7. Outside of that, we do have some choices here. So there's 3 talents up for kind of grabs here. We have 1 point in Ghoulish Frenzy, we have 1 point in Unholy Pact, and 1 point in Deadliest Coil, right? So what happens in specific dungeons, you really want that 2-target cleave. I'm thinking about like Ruby Life Pool kind of vibe. Also not good, for instance, have bosses with 2-target cleave. So in those scenarios, I think it's worthwhile to pick up Improved Ethical. Sorry, I think I said Deadliest Coil before. Improved Ethical, right? And then you sacrifice Ghoulish Frenzy. So Unholy Pact does a little bit more damage in overall compared to what you get from Ghoulish Frenzy, which is why you pick that up. But I'm not 100% sure of that, so if you feel like you want to sacrifice Unholy Pact, I think that's fine as well. Other than that, everything is relatively set in stone. This is going to be our go-to build in, like, this is the most versatile one, right? Deals good single target, deals good AoE. It's not the best single target, it's not the best AoE, but it's the best balance in my opinion. There are other builds that sacrifice quite a lot of single target to do more AoE. I will talk about those in a different video, but you might have heard about it, the no army build. Controversial one, but that's one of them. Anyway, I feel like you can pick up these talents, run them in every key, and do really well. So that's why I recommend them. Now for gear and stats, right? We need to talk about trinkets. So ideally, you want to run Puzzle Box. It's such a great mastery buff, which synergizes very well with our army cooldown. Generally just always use it, kind of thing. For the passive trinket, I would pick either Icon. I would pick Icon if I had it. I don't. So I had to pick my second best, which in this instance is going to be Hunger the Pack. You know, good amount of crit, just passive stat, increases your AoE a lot. For the stats, we want a balance of things, right? For AoE, the best stats are crit and mastery. However, you won't see a lot of players doing full crit mastery, generally because a lot of people have lots of haste when they do raiding, right? I have loads of haste for my raid build. If I wanted to fully optimize for Mythic Plus, I would probably drop a lot of haste to go into more crit mastery. But, you know, it's also nice to have haste because it gives you lots of single target burst kind of thing. So it's not bad to have it, just that it kind of moves your damage profile, a little bit away from heavy AoE into a bit better single target. Going into that, you know, for the Defile, we have two options. We have Tepid Versatility, or we have Ice Defile, Corrupting Rage. If I'm running a lower key, I will definitely pick up Ice Defile. Ice Defile, like, it has a lot of uptime, the crit is really valuable to do lots of AoE damage, so why not pick it? However, when I do a bit higher key, so when I go 25 plus, I value the survivability or the versatility a bit more, which is why I pick up the survivability flask, yeah. For the reinforced, it's always Fallen Crusader. Cool, so that's kind of like all the pre-stuff out of the way. Let's talk about rotation, because this is by far going to be the most impactful thing to focus on when you try and optimize your Unholy gameplay. All right. To start at a very high level, right? What's the point of the Unholy rotation? How do we actually deal damage? And, you know, how do we then leverage that to actually figure out what buttons to press? So Unholy gets its damage from primarily two sources. We have our diseases, so Virulent Plague. We also get Frost Fever and Blood Plague, right? Because we do pick up Super Strain. That's one part of it. Big reason why that does a lot of damage is due to Airborne Fever and Plaguebringer. Plaguebringer is a buff that you need to keep up by pressing Scourge Strike. This is like lesson number one for any Unholy Death Knight. If you're in a Myth Plus environment, you want at least 90% uptime on Plaguebringer. Like, number one task for you, press Scourge Strike at least every 10 seconds to keep up that buff. Okay. Second damage source is Epidemic, right? If you look at your damage breakdown, right, it's going to be Dots and Epidemic being by far the highest. Epidemic just scales incredibly well with high target counts, and it's going to be like the primary source of your damage as a direct damage source. So a lot of your DPS rotation is about making sure you generate as much runic power as possible to be able to press Epidemic every single GCD you can. All right. Thirdly, with Defile coming into play now, we have this mastery buff we can leverage. So if you guys are not familiar with Defile, when you pop it down, you get this stacking mastery buff. It's right there. Stacks up to 8% mastery. That is a buff we're going to want to keep up at 8% as much as possible. So another kind of like mini game for the Unholy Death Knight is ensuring we trigger long windows of full uptime. Essentially means that you pop down Defile, and then as the buff's about to run out, we use it again. So we get, like, you know, every single pack is going to have around between 3 and 4 back-to-back Defiles to keep up that 8% mastery buff. All right, that's the high level overview, yeah? We got the diseases, we got the epidemics, right? And then we got the Defile gameplay. There's obviously going to be stuff like Festamite optimization, but in a sense, the rotation I'm going to tell you now is going to optimize that without you actually having to bother about it. So I think those three things I mentioned are actually the ones you need to care about. Now, when I look at the Unholy rotation Mythic Plus, I kind of view each pack as its own kind of starting sequence, which is something we're going to talk a lot about. So when you actually approach a pack, how do you do that? So number one, we're going to pop down Defile. This is ideal to use as you run towards the pack. So you can see the pack in the distance, right? You want to use Defile on them to immediately start stacking up that 8% mastery buff, yeah? Number two, Scourge Strike. This is probably strange to some, right? We won't have any wounds up, right? We will do cleave with Defile, right? But still, we don't have any dots up either. The thing is, it's more efficient to use Scourge Strike to get Plaguebringer up and then apply your dots compared to the other way around. This is due to how Unholy Blight stacks up faster when you have Plaguebringer active. Anyway, the ideal scenario is that you use your Scourge Strike as soon as you come into range and you stand in your Defile, right? So you use the Defile on range, you run into it, and then you hit Scourge Strike to get like a nice cleave and everything. It doesn't matter that much if you cleave, it just deals extra damage. The Plaguebringer buff is on you, not the enemy, so don't really need to care about hitting that, but it's still nice, right? Number three, apply your dots. This is going to be Unholy Blight the majority of the time. It depends obviously on your key level, but for me, 45 seconds is roughly what I can expect any given pack to be ish. Obviously, that's not always the case, so sometimes you're going to have to use Outbreak as well. But generally, it's going to be Unholy Blight to apply your dots. After this point, we're going to just use all our cooldowns we have. The order here doesn't matter that much, but depending on what you have up, it's going to be Dark Transformation, usually going to be the first one. We have Unholy Assault, and we have Apocalypse, and we have Abomination Limb. Unholy Assault needs to go before Apocalypse, but other than that, it doesn't matter. If you don't have Unholy Assault, you're going to put in a normal Festering Strike there to set up for your Apocalypse. And in that scenario, it doesn't matter if you actually get 4 wounds, you know, it's going to be fine anyway. After this phase, generally we will have quite a lot of rune power that we generated. We're going to use some runes, right? Dump that with Epidemic. So essentially, you know, after you use all the cooldowns, number of cooldowns, you know, depend on the build, whatever. You dump the Epidemic, and then you're going to refresh your Preybringer, generally. The thing is, with Defile having so high uptime, you can kind of also press Scourge Strike at this point without caring about it. As in, you don't need to wait for the second Defile to press it, because you will already have Defile down, so press Scourge Strike is actually quite high value. But generally, the next part of the rotation is going to be press Epidemic as soon as you can, press Defile when that buff goes away, and then otherwise just press Scourge Strike to generate rune power. The way this works is that when we use Dark Transformation, our pets will start doing AoE and also apply wounds in AoE. So effectively, every time we hit Scourge Strike, we're going to burst loads and loads of wounds. This is going to generate a ton of rune power. We get like, I think is it 5? 5 or 6, I can't remember exactly. We get lots of rune power every time you burst a wound, which is going to allow us to funnel into more Epidemic usage. So if you pay attention to my rotation here, you will see me, you know, I have Defiled Armor, press Scourge Strike once, and then I follow with multiple Epidemics, and then I do another Scourge Strike and then multiple Epidemics. Alright. The thing is that everything here kind of feeds into each other. You know, we have Dark Transformation up. Epidemic is going to extend that duration, keep making your pet apply wounds. We're going to have constant Defile down. So every time we hit Scourge Strike, we're going to get lots of Festamite stacks. We're going to get lots of rune power. And we're just going to get this really nice cycle of, you know, dumping rune power, hitting Scourge Strike once, dumping rune power, and so on. We will have instances where you will press Festering Strike at this point as well. It doesn't happen that often, but if you're unlucky and you don't generate a single wound on any target, you are going to want to have at least one Festering wound up so you can actually get some values from the tier set. This won't matter in Temple 1 of course, so you probably won't use much Festering Strike, but it does happen, right? So it's not like you completely ignore it. It's just that it's pretty much, it's never used if at least one target has Festering wound on them, which they will have the majority of the time. Alright, that's the AoE rotation for you. So we have different phases. We have kind of like the initial setup with Defiled, Naked Scourge Strike, and Dot setup. We have all the cooldown usage, and then we go into this kind of using Epidemic, Scourge Strike, using Epidemic kind of thing. Obviously, we're also going to want to reapply our dots. That's kind of very important. So that's just going to be an outbreak coming in, you know, 15 seconds, 20 seconds after the initial Unholy Blight. So just keep track of your dots, but you're going to notice quite quickly if you don't have it up because you can't press Epidemic in that case. That's pretty much it. So yeah, we got the essentially 3 phases: setup, CD usage, and then Epidemic and Defile, Scourge Strike kind of rotation. And doing that, you're going to be absolutely blasting. A couple of points I feel like I need to make. So in AoE, of course, when do we press Epidemic versus Death Call? Generally, if you have improved Death Call, you want to do Epidemic at 4+ targets. If you don't, you use Epidemic at 2. So depending on whether or not you pick up that talent, it's kind of like, you know, I always use Epidemic in AoE versus I use Epidemic when I have a sufficient amount of targets, kind of thing. Right, that's the AoE rotation. Let's cover the single target one. So what's different here? Essentially nothing. Well, you know, we're still going to use the kind of running with Defile, Naked Skirt Strike, and so on. We're still going to have the CD usage coming into play. The only difference is that instead of using Epidemic, we're going to use Deathcore, and we're not going to be generating that much runic power as before from those Skirt Strikes, right? We're not going to spread out many wounds, so we are going to be pressing Festering Strike a lot more. So in pure single target, make sure you always have Festering wounds on your target. When you hit Skirt Strike, you do so by using Festering Strike. So that's slightly different. Still, as I said, Defile, we're going to want to pop that down, get these long 8% mastery buff windows. So same thing applies there. Let's talk a little bit more about Defile, right? I said, you know, reapply it when you need to keep the buff going. But I didn't say, you know, kind of holding up to stack up twice. So the thing is, right, so what you can do is you stack up 2 charges of Defile. You can use 4 back-to-back Defiles to have a constant 8% uptime, and it gives you like 40 plus seconds of the 8% mastery, right? This is ideal. To execute this, you need to refresh Defile when there's roughly 1 second left on the buff. Like, it's quite tight. So it's not like you can refresh it as soon as the current one disappears. You need to wait for the actual buff to go away. If you keep track, right, I got the weak aura here. There's going to be part of my pack in the description. When that starts glowing, it has 3 seconds left-ish. And we want to then wait like a second or so before we pop down Defile. If we do it too early, we won't have Defile back up to fully refresh it 4 times. It doesn't matter that much, right? Doing it 3 times is fine, but 4 times is ideal, so do try and target that. In AoE, we don't really sit and bank up 2 charges of Defile because we want to use it for every single pull, right? You might want to not use it at the end of a given pull, but generally it's going to be fine to do 3 back-to-back Defiles, you know, no worries. In single target though, I will actually sit and wait for my Defiles. So once I've done this set of 4, I'll wait to charge out 2, and then I do another set of 4. That's kind of like the approach. Cool, so that's Defile usage. Also, lots of people ask, is there any way to make it less visible on the ground? Answer is no. Sadly not. You're going to have to deal with the fact that it covers ground mechanics and just try and play around it. You could probably see when I killed the bird, somewhat difficult to see what stuff is going on. So just try and pay attention, and if you die, just blame Defile, you know. That's what I do. Other CD usage, let's talk about that. So obviously I talked about, you know, using all the CDs every time you pull. It's very important to actually keep using your cooldowns whenever they come up. It's a big part of doing good damage in Mythic class is not holding your CDs. This also is true for Army of the Dead. So Army is a big single target cooldown. We want to use it every 3 seconds with Puzzle Box. This is sometimes going to mean holding it for a couple of seconds for Puzzle Box to come back and cooldown. If you really are spamming the Epidemic, the effective cooldown of Army is going to be lower than 3 minutes. In the same way, if there's lots of downtime, you might have to hold Puzzle Box for it. Still, I mess this up a lot. You can see currently I have Army in cooldown, and I just used Puzzle Box. So did I do it properly? I can't remember. Anyway. Sometimes you desync them, it's not ideal. What I like to do is I look at the Bloodlust timer. If Bloodlust is coming up, I want to use Army with it. So if there's like, you know, 2 minutes on Bloodlust, 3 minutes and so on, I want to time that so I do get Puzzle Army with Bloodlust on the bosses. It's good value. If Army is, you know, well, if the Bloodlust is 6 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever, I really literally don't care if I'm just about to pull a boss, because what's going to happen is I'm going to get Army up in the middle of the boss anyway. So, you know. Only instance where I will hold Army is if I know a bloodlusted tyrannical boss is coming up and I want to use my Army for that with Puzzle. Alright. By the way, you can see here a pool where I don't have an all assault. And you can see I spend some time using some Festering Strikes so I can set up on my Apocalypse. So just a quick instance on where that goes. Probably it's fine to kind of just do a single Festa into Apocalypse. It's not like those extra ghouls is going to matter a lot. You mostly do it to get extra runes back, so don't bother too much about that. Alright, so usually happens, right, with these videos. I feel like I'm done with the rotation. That's everything I wanted to say, right? However, I always come up with new kind of tidbits after this point, so I can't guarantee that this is the final rotational advice I would give, but for the rest of the video, I'm now going to do commentary on the run in front of you, so just talking about my choices and so on. And then if I come up with any other rotation bit that I want to cover, I will do that. But feel free to skip to the end of the video if you want to see the breakdown. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming. Let's talk about the run here. So it's an Academy 24. We are currently doing relatively good on time. We have 12 minutes to deal with 2 bosses and a little bit of trash, which is going to be good. You can see here we have Bloodlust coming up in 30 seconds, which is great because I have army ready and I have my puzzle box in 40. So we are going to pull the boss and I'm going to be able to just send all my cooldowns, which is ideal. Vex is a dangerous boss on Tyrannical. It really hurts a lot. So I'm very happy I picked up Will and Necropolis here, and we're going to do our best to mitigate as much damage as possible. This means pre-using AMS for the mana bombs. That will immune it, so every second one we can do that. And if we do get mana bombs, we're going to stand close to the boss so we can depth strike. And if there's an overlap mechanics, we're going to use an extra defensive to make sure we don't die. I do have a thundering time, as you can see, which I do think about. The instances where I pay attention to it is generally when I'm in the middle of a boss and I can kind of delay army for maybe 30 seconds, whatever, to hit that thundering. You'll see me here. I'm playing around my Defile window, so you can see when the previous one was about to run out, I picked up another one. Unfortunately, the boss moved here, so I won't get that 4 in a row overlap, but that's fine. Like getting 3 in a row is also good, especially when you can overlap with your cooldowns. At this point, I'm going to wait to bank up 2 sets of Defile and then use those again. Right, tank is mostly dealing with the orbs here. We're going to be chilling. We can see I have AMS here for the mana bombs. So I'm going to use that to immune it, and I think I managed to, yeah. So there's supposed to be 3 mana bombs coming out, but there were only 2 in that instance because I immuned one of them, which is a great way to deal with that mechanic because it removes a lot of healing required from the healer. We are at one point here also gonna deal with the there's one instance if you just let the boss do his thing, you will get this awful overlap where you have the mana bombs exploding at the same time as the knockback comes in, and I can one-shot people easily. Dark Aim Fisher, right? So what you do at one point is that you let one orb go through, which gives the boss some energy, which means that you avoid that kind of overlap. So I think someone is going to call that out. All right, we got another immune. We got it. Excellent. Ooh, tank nearly dying there. It's fine though. You can see I'm not perfect at refreshing my defiles. There we go. Let it go through to avoid overlap. Just try your best, right? I have my weak aura to try and get it to work. You can see here I get this. Oh, it did actually get the overlap there. So I had to commit my IBF for it. But when I did, it was fine. I didn't die. That is the one time. Like, generally you don't want to commit a defensive cooldown for when you get the mana bombs because you need it if you get the overlap. So if you use defensive when you don't need it, you won't have the defensive for when you actually want it. Another AMS. We managed to immune it. Yep. We're getting so many fewer. Look at that. Just missed out on that Defile. We have army again. I'm probably going to hold it here. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's not going to get full value, and I don't even have puzzle box. So probably on the next pull, I'm going to use puzzle box and army to get some good value there. Whew. That was a close on, biceps. I do have the that talent that gives you a little bit of a DR on Lichborn, which is incredibly useful for these kind of keys. Like having that little bit of extra defensive when you need it is going to be the difference between dying or not dying. As you've seen there, if I didn't have Lichborn, I would have probably died in that instance. So great talent to pick up when you need these kind of a bit higher keys. Right, we're going to do 2 pulls here. One of them is just going to be lots of spinning guys, and then we're going to pull the rest into the boss. And hopefully deal with the boss in the 7 minutes we have for it. I'm going to use army and posse box here, because I'm going to have this up for the boss anyway. And as you can see, bloodlust won't be relevant here, so might as well. Right, we do the normal kind of open air. It was talked about, popping down Defile first GCD, and then naked skirt strike. Defile's come running out, so you pop it down again, refresh to 8% buff, and then we do this kind of like skirt strike into epidemic thing. You can see that I noticed that I didn't have any wounds on anything. That's why I did that single pressing strike, just to make sure I get some value from the tier set. If you're watching this in Temple 1, that's not something you need to do. Just go with normal skirt strikes. Alright, we have a lot of things to stop these, like we can grip him, we can blinding sleet him, we can do pet stun, that kind of thing. So I just try and stay far away from them. I'm not sure, you used to be able to just avoid this fully by standing on the stairs in a way, but I haven't felt like that has worked recently. So anyway, dealt with that promptly. I'm at 200k DPS now, which is pretty nice. Unfortunately, it won't end up that high because the final boss is going to drop me a bit lower. Anyway, we're going to pull these bosses in, these ads in the boss. What we're going to do is the priest is going to mind control this restorer. He has this spell where he puts a shield on someone, which gives them loads of spell haste. So you can use that to kind of boost the damage of any cast you have in the group. Ideally, that's also cast by default, but you can set up some macro which kind of targets someone, uses it, so that you can, if you want to, just as a priest, just use it on yourself, right? But yeah, this boss is kind of, nothing too much to focus on. In the meantime, here are the damage breakdowns. You can see I deal a lot of damage on the that first room. It's like a huge portion of my overall. But as I talked about before, there's lots of dot damage, lots of epidemic damage. That's generally what you get it from. We do actually get quite a lot from Defile. It's a couple % right? But it's it's generally about getting that mastery buff. That's where you get the real value. These energy bombs, you can pre-aim as those, so you can have a look at who the boss is targeting. And if it targets you with it, you can aim as it and it won't apply to you, which is a neat little trick. Alright, boss is dropping slow there. Was that mate, did I just do a 3 wound apocalypse? I hope I didn't. Maybe I didn't see it properly. Anyway, nothing too exciting is going to happen in this fight. We're going to time it. I think it's going to be like 3-minute fight or whatever. Because it's tyrannical, so it does have a lot of HP. General kind of feelings about Unholy at the moment. Obviously, Unholy currently is giga pumping in the raid. We are like top overall damage after the buffs. I think the buffs are noticeable in Myth class as well. I haven't played much Temple Open 7, so the change to Defile being competitive is a big one. It does matter. I remember this. I didn't have time to use my posse box, man. Anyway, having Defile matters for your overall throughput. It makes it more difficult to play. Pre-AMS, by the way, you saw that. But I do feel like you feel it. You feel it in your overall. So whenever I play Unholy, I'm kind of topping damage. That's what I do. And some dungeons maybe not. You have like Temple. It's difficult to do effective damage because the pools are so small. But overall, Unholy's pumping. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not meta, but I said this in the past. It is meta because it doesn't bring that little bit extra you need. Like, it doesn't bring a group buff. It doesn't bring that very useful like master spell or whatever. It doesn't have that many stuns or in this whatever. Yeah, it's easy to count up. We do good damage, but it just generally isn't enough. I try my best. Pushing, trying to show people that DK is nice and strong in Myth Plus, but in the end I can't control the meta, so I'll just do my best to show everyone what I believe is the best way to play Unholy, so they can do more damage, and then hopefully we'll get invited to more keys. Whoops. Accidentally got hit there, but managed to pre-AMS the bomb anyway. Alright. We do have a lot of deaths there, but it's kind of fine in the end. We had so much time, or so many rests available to us, so it doesn't matter that much. Ooh, nearly got hit by the breath. It's definitely not the cleanest kill I've done this boss. It doesn't help that we brought in that little ad to deal with the give it the haste buff, but still, that's part of playing a bit higher keys, that you need to be able to deal with mechanics, you know, with the addition of ads or anything that you put on the bosses. Right, 40% left. Yeah, we had like 4 minutes for this and almost still didn't make it, so. Mate, I need to stop running into those balls. Not sure what I'm doing here. Anyway, boss is dying. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope this was useful. If you're watching this 10.1, hopefully it's useful then that for you then as well. I don't expect anything to change at this point, so you know, we'll see. I'm bound to make more videos though, so there will be more to come. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you thought about this video. Upvote, downvote, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.